They thought it would be a humiliation. On NATO's largest training drill of the year, the F-35 Lightning II was set to hunt down an RAF Typhoon in front of cameras, generals, and pilots from across the alliance. The Americans joked it wouldn't last 5 minutes. The Typhoon's pilot, Flight Lieutenant Sarah Keaton, just smiled and closed her helmet visor. But 30,000 feet above the North Sea, what the F-35 saw in its crosshairs vanished. Ever seen a drill turn into a real fight in seconds? Welcome to the hidden valor. The air over the North Sea had that strange, heavy stillness, the kind that made even veteran pilots feel like something was about to happen. In the distance, a gleaming silver F-35 cut through the clouds, its silhouette sharp, modern, and bristling with technology. Inside the cockpit, Captain Mark Jensen was calm. He'd been told this was an easy kill. Lightning I, your targets already airborne. Just tag and bag. We've got the press on standby. The voice in his headset crackled. Below and ahead, the RAF Typhoon, gray, angular, and decades old according to the Americans, moved with quiet precision. At its controls sat Flight Lieutenant Sarah Keaton, one of the RAF's most disciplined but least flashy pilots. She'd heard the laughter in the hangar. Earlier that morning, she'd seen the smirks when the matchups were announced. You know he's going to wipe the floor with you, right? One American crew chief had said as she passed. Sarah had simply adjusted her gloves and replied, "We'll see." The drill's rules were simple. Survive in the sky for 10 minutes while the F-35 hunted you. Fail, and you're killed in simulation. Succeed, and you prove the Typhoon still had teeth. But Sarah wasn't planning to just survive. From the first moment Jensen got a radar lock, Sarah could feel the game begin. She kept her Typhoon low, skimming just above the waves, her hands light on the stick. The F-35's radar pinged once, twice, then nothing. What the hell? I had her. Jensen muttered, banking hard left. In the control room, observers leaned forward. The British liaison officer smiled faintly. Sarah had used a combination of sea clutter and an aggressive rolling brake to bleed just enough speed to slip into the F-35's blind spot. It was a maneuver no one expected a Typhoon to pull off against 5th-gen stealth. From there, she played cat and mouse. Each time Jensen closed in, Sarah would force him into a turn where his stealth profile dropped for a fraction of a second, just enough for her to slip away again. But the real shock came 4 minutes in. Jensen spotted her on his HUD, a solid lock. He armed the simulated missile, squeezed the trigger, and the lock broke. Control. I lost her again, he snapped. In the command room, the murmurs began. The Typhoon wasn't supposed to be able to break a Lightning's lock once acquired. This wasn't just survival. This was counter-hunting. And then through his canopy, Jensen saw the flash, the silver-gray dart of the Typhoon rising from the sea, nose on, before rolling inverted directly above him. It was a maneuver so aggressive, so dangerously close that even the control officers gasped. Sarah didn't fire. She didn't have to. The point was made. But the drill wasn't over, and Jensen wasn't going to let this stand. The Typhoon leveled out after that inverted pass, skimming back into the cloud deck as if it had simply vanished into the sky. In the F-35, Captain Jensen's breathing had gone shallow, not from fear but from something worse for a fighter pilot. Doubt. Lightning I status. Controls. Voice was sharp now. Engaging. She's using terrain masking and low-speed brakes. That shouldn't even work against me. Well, it is. Adjust. From the command center, the live feed flickered between the Typhoon's helmet, cam, and Jensen's HUD. The British crew were quietly leaning forward now while the Americans watched with tight jaws. No one was laughing anymore. Sarah, meanwhile, wasn't grinning or savoring any satisfaction. She was flying like the sky itself was trying to kill her. Every turn a calculated risk. Every altitude shift a trap waiting to be sprung. She knew the lightning's advantage. Sensor fusion, stealth, and high off-bore sight weapons. What she had was something else entirely. Raw aerodynamic agility and the ability to make a jet do things it really shouldn't. Jensen came in high this time, using the F-35's superior climb rate to dive on her from above. She spotted the move seconds before his radar spike hit her canopy warning, and instead of evading in the obvious direction, she rolled under and into his dive path. What is she doing? One of the NATO analysts in the command center blurted. She's baiting him, the British liaison murmured. The simulated missile alert screamed in Jensen's ears, not from his own weapons, but from Sarah's. She'd gotten a soft lock during his dive, and if this had been real, the F-35 would be debris. Control, I request backup, Jensen bit. This isn't a one-on-one anymore. 2 minutes later, a second F-35 entered the airspace. Lightning II flown by. Lieutenant Perez, another ace. From the moment he'd on, the Typhoon's odds seemed to shrink. 2 5th gens working in perfect coordination would box her in and force a kill. Sarah caught sight of their mirrored approach, one high, one low, trying to pinch her into a vertical trap. She stayed level until the last possible second, then yanked the Typhoon into a tight barrel roll that shoved her between them so close that both lightnings had to brake hard to avoid collision. Perez swore into comms. She's insane. No, Jensen growled. She's dangerous. The second pass was even tighter. The F-35s forcing her toward a cloud wall, thick enough to blind her sensors. Was the perfect ambush zone, or so they thought. Just before entering the cloud, Sarah chopped her throttle, letting the Typhoon bleed speed and slide into the F-35's 6 o'clock positions for a split second, long enough to ping both jets. With a simulated kill. Too clean. Lock-ins. In the command center, the silence was deafening. Then someone whispered. She just took out both lightnings. But Sarah knew the drill's clock wasn't done ticking, and her enemies weren't the type to accept simulated death without trying to prove a point. They'd be back angry and dangerous. They came back in silence. No radio chatter, no playful jabs over the comms, just the flat, professional voices of two pilots who'd just been publicly humiliated and weren't about to let it happen again. Sarah caught their radar signatures. Almost the same moment her threat display lit up. Both lightnings had gone to aggressive intercept mode. Rules cockpit, the G-forces were brutal. Her breathing turned rhythmic. Inhale on, pull, exhale on roll, forcing the Typhoon into maneuvers most pilots wouldn't even try in a simulator. Suddenly, a blip broke off. Jensen had climbed high, straight into the sun's glare. Classic boom and zoom setup. She knew if she chased Perez too long, Jensen would drop in from above and kill her in seconds. So, she did the one thing they didn't expect. She ran, not in a straight line but a high-speed slalom through the cloud breaks, dragging Perez deeper into the pattern, pulling him away from Jensen's strike zone. Then she snapped into a climbing spiral, pretending to overshoot her own limits, giving Jensen the perfect opening. He took it, but as the lightning screamed down toward hell, Sarah inverted, nose down, and rolled under him, slipping through the narrowest gap between the two F-35s as they tried to cross paths. The entire command room gasped. Did she just? Yes, the British liaison said grimly. And if those were real wings, they'd have clipped. Now both lightnings were behind her. The most dangerous position imaginable. Every defensive trick she knew would have to be perfect. Her countermeasures display lit up as if mocking her. Every simulated flare and chaff dump calculated to the microcond. The cloud deck became her shield. The sun her ally. Perez nearly got her with a snap lock. Over the Regeline. Nearly. She broke at 9 Gs. The Typhoon's frame groaning like a living thing sliding just out of weapons range. The simulated tone in. Perez's headset cut out a fraction before missile release. For the next 2 minutes, no one in the control center spoke. No one even shifted in their seats. It was like watching a chess match at Sean 200 kilometers an hour. And then, Sarah vanished. 1 second she was in both lightnings. HUDs. The next she'd melted into a cloud. Formation so dense their sensors lost her completely. It was a trick old RAF pilots called ghosting the grid. And it only worked if you knew exactly where the enemy would search next, so you could be somewhere else entirely. Perez cursed. Jensen scanned. Nothing. Control. We've lost visual and radar. Contact. The reply came slow, almost amused. Typhoon 1 has left the engagement area. But Sarah hadn't left. She was climbing to a place they wouldn't expect. Until it was too late. For the next 60 seconds she was a ghost. No contrails, no visible silhouette. No radar ping, just the invisible presence of a typhoon hunting above 2 of the most advanced fighters on Earth. Every breath was slow, measured. Every micro adjustment of the stick was deliberate. She was waiting for the moment when both lightnings thought they were safe. Down below, Perez and Jensen had regrouped. She's gone. Must have bugged out. Perez muttered, scanning the endless cloud valleys. No, she's here, Jensen said quietly, almost to himself. I can feel it. Control's voice broke in. Dry as sandpaper. All call signs continue drill. Parameters, but the words were drowned out by a sharp, urgent tone in both lightning cockpits. Lock alert. They both looked up at the same time, and there she was. The Typhoon's nose dropped into a predatory angle, air brakes flaring as her radar signature suddenly bloomed on their scopes. She'd been above them the entire time, riding the blind spot of their search pattern, and now she was diving hard. Perez rolled to brake left. Jensen broke right, splitting the threat. But she didn't chase either. Instead, she drove straight into the gap between them, snapping off a soft lock on Jensen, then breaking that lock in less than a second to catch Perez in the turn. Both pilots realized too late what was happening. She wasn't hunting kills. She was hurting them. From the control tower, the British liaison leaned forward. She's setting a trap. The NATO commander frowned against 2 lightnings. That's suicide. It wasn't because Sarah knew one thing. The lightnings didn't. 5 kilometers ahead was a ridge that forced anyone flying low to pop up sharply or risk a collision. In a real fight, that rise was dangerous. In a drill, it was lethal to situational awareness. She drove Perez toward it, keeping Jensen occupied with tight arrest of Jinx. The moment Perez hit the ridge line and had to climb, Sarah snapped up behind him. Perfect missile envelope. Kill tone. Perez was out. But she didn't stop. Instead of breaking off, she yanked the Typhoon into a vertical climb that pinned her back in the seat, chasing altitude like her life depended on it. Jensen, still burning from the earlier humiliation, roared up after her. It was exactly what she wanted. At the top of her climb, she killed her. Throttle. The Typhoon bled speed instantly, hanging almost motionless for a heart-topping second. Jensen shot past her, his sensors momentarily blind to the sudden change. She nosed over, rolled inverted, and came down right behind him. Hunter to hunted in under 3 seconds. Kill tone. Jensen was done. The radio crackled. All aircraft. Drill complete. Typhoon 1. Clean sweep. In the command room, nobody spoke for a moment. Then slowly, the NATO commander took off his headset and said the only thing that made sense. Remind me never to underestimate the RAF again. On the tarmac, Perez pulled off his helmet, still shaking his head. You. No, he said, half grinning. Everyone's going to say you won because you're jet stealthier or faster or Sarah. Cut him off with a smile. Then let's swap next time. They did. And she won. Again. The hangar was still buzzing when the jets taxied in. Ground crew swarmed around the Lightnings, first not to celebrate but to confirm what everyone already knew. Both were cleanly tagged. No debate, no excuses. Sarah's Typhoon rolled to a stop, canopy sliding back with a quiet hiss. She climbed down without theatrics, helmet tucked under her arm, flight suit still creased from the brutal maneuvers. She looked like she just walked in from a training jog, not dismantled. Two of NATO's most feared fighters, Perez and Jensen, were waiting. Perez had that half smile of someone who knew he'd been outplayed and couldn't even be mad about it. Jensen was quieter, eyes still replaying the last moments of the climb and the inverted roll. You're good, Perez said simply. Sarah's lips twitched. And you're not bad for a Lightning driver. Behind them, the NATO commander approached. He stopped a meter from her, hands clasped behind his back, studying her the way a man studies a blueprint for something that shouldn't exist. Flight Lieutenant, he began. You just embarrassed two of our best. How? She shrugged lightly. You sent them after the jet. He frowned, and she glanced toward the Typhoon. You should have sent them after the pilot. A laugh rolled through the hangar. Not mocking, not forced. Genuine respect. Even the ground crew, hardened by years of drills and egos, joined in. Perez leaned in. So what about that rematch? Sarah didn't blink. Fine. We swap jets. You get the Typhoon. I take the Lightning. An hour later, the second drill ended. The same way. Different cockpit. Different HUD. Same result.